everyone. Welcome to the Raw Report, episode 25. I am your host, Jerry, along with my co-hosts, Santana and the Bolivian Siberian, Andre Perez, straight out of Fairfax, VA. And today we'll be discussing the top 10 wide receivers plus a bonus round. So it's very exciting with the upcoming fantasy football season coming in September. We just get down to our, top 10 predictions. And we're going to kick it off with Dr. Dre over here, straight out of VA. What's going on, brother?
Straight out of VA, I'm picking Mr. JJ, Justin Jefferson, a.k.a. From the Jeffersons, Minnesota Vikings receiver, 24 years old. Dude won the Offensive Player of the Year for a reason, and he's only getting better. So it's a clear-cut number one overall in fantasy and real life. Checks all the boxes. Kirk Cousins still playing at a high level. No Dalvin Cook this year. So just think about the offense running through him solely, right? I'm excited to see him, fellas. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody else that you could pick. And I'm saying number one overall in fantasy, not just wide receiver.
Damn, Andre, I don't know if it's the hat or your Washington accent, but you sound a little excited. Well, damn, that's a bold statement. You said overall.
Yes.
Ooh.
Clear
you know
cut.
what? You know the facts. The facts of and the stats of last year. They speak on that.
He had 1,800 yards. These are the facts.
I was just about to mention that he had about 1,800 yards, nine touchdowns. So he was first in points, all right, especially in PPR leagues. Number one in yards, number one in receptions, and he was top 5 in touchdowns. Solid pick. And I would say, I would argue that it's he's top 1 overall, not just here in the wide receiver rankings. So that's a great pick, Dre. I know the second pick is gonna go to you, Bones. And of course, I think I can foresee who you're going to pick right now. He's probably on my screen.
He is most definitely in your screen. All right. We're talking about the cheetah. We're talking about Tyreek. We're talking about the one man that came out and publicly stated his goal is 2,000 yards receiving. That's a bold statement coming from a bold and electrifying player.
Statement.
And at first, even as a fan, can't hide it, root for the Fins. Even as a fan, I was like, that's a little, that's a little crazy, like no one's ever done it. It's it's a wild statement. But when you think about how he put in career highs in receptions, yardage, and touchdowns, and 2 or missed 6 games. He may not sound, he may not be too crazy after all. So number 2 overall, Tyreek. And I remember last year, everybody was not high on him because everybody thought that he wasn't going to ball out with Tua. Quite the opposite. Proved everybody wrong. And I expect him to only, be greater because he even said it himself. Last year, he didn't know the playbook so well. Sometimes he was just running routes. This year, that he's more honed in the second year of that offense, I expect more stats. So, Cheetah, number 2 overall.
I mean, yeah, it's a solid pick. Very, very safe pick. But at 2, I just think it's a little high. I think there's some other gentlemen out there that are a bit ahead of him. Given that, he did have, 1,700 yards last year. So you got to give credit where it's due, right? But he's also
without Tua for 6 games.
Hey, a healthy Tua is key. They got a lot of defensive help, so that's going to help the offense get back on the field, right? They're going to get the ball a lot more. If you look at the time of possession for that offense, pay close attention to that this year, fellas. They're going to have the ball on offense more, so I think because of that, they may get a little bit heavy on the run, clock management. But it's a great pick. I like it.
Yeah, I would say that Tyreek was a little bit high, but I can't be mad at the pick because he's top 5 in pretty much every category except for touchdowns.
And
And
height.
we all know if Waddle wasn't in the picture, he'd be probably number one. So he's definitely a great pick. I do see him doing more production as he's done in the last 3 years. Actually, three straight seasons over 1,200 yards. In 2020, he scored 17 touchdowns. If he can get back to that status, I think the Dolphins are sitting pretty. What did he do last season? 1,700 yards, guys. That's very impressive. I was just talking about Justin Jefferson. Those guys are basically neck to neck, in my opinion. So Tyreek Hill, number two. I like that pick, Bones. I respect it. With my next pick, again, as I mentioned in the last podcast, I hate to root for the Dallas Cowboys, guys, at any
It sounds like
Oh
capacity.
you
my
do.
God!
It
I
Don't
took
sounds like
Tony
say
you
that.
do.
Pollard. I took Tony Pollard in the top 10, right? And I'm gonna go with another Cowboy production machine because he's gonna be the one to keep Dak out of the hot seat essentially this year as well. And of course, I'm talking about CeeDee Lamb, guys. He's gonna be another productive monster out here. CeeDee Lamb, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. So it's a high producing season, especially for CeeDee Lamb. He's WR1 in the Cowboys. I don't see him losing his spot to anybody else or anybody butting into his production unless Tony Pollard gets a few receptions. But he did have 9 touchdowns, guys. So top 5 in points, top 5 in yards. He can get in there for the top 5 in touchdowns and receptions. I see him sitting pretty this year as a top receiver. So I'm gonna take him at number 3.
I I can't agree. I cannot agree with your decision. Given everything that you said, the stats do prove otherwise, but I just would have put somebody else over
Yeah,
him. But okay.
I agree. There are better receivers. Even with Tyreek, like I mentioned, there are better receivers out there, and maybe it's the big name, maybe that they have like some solidified position in this league, a couple years under their belt. Dak, unfortunately, is an above average quarterback playing for the Cowboys. Um, but
It's 9 touchdowns. It's the 9 touchdowns, like you said. I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah, he definitely produced. I had him on a couple squads last year, so I can't be a hypocrite and say he does nothing. He does produce, but I still think, like I mentioned, there's a few more fellas out there that are ahead in the pecking order, which brings me to the number 4, Jamar Chase out of
Nice.
Cincinnati. A wise man
mm.
once told me as I was passing by the grocery store, he said, "Hey, young man, chase the money, never the hose." So I live by that rule to this day. And Jamar Chase, it is in his last name. What more can you say? That said, he has some doubt with Joe Burrow's calf, his knee, ACL, LCL, some shit like that. I don't know, but he's got some concern there. But still, it's Jamar Chase, man. Like he's young. I think he's 23. He had an incredible season last year. Only 1,000 yards, but those 9 TDs, great there. You still got T. Higgins on the other side, that could take away some production. Tyler Boyd, still he's only 29, but he's like a security blanket, Mr. Veteran out there. But I think Jamar Chase is going to have that leap year where he's going to ascend to where Justin Jefferson was last year. That's my opinion. I would have put Jamar Chase at number 2. That's what I meant by ahead of Tyreek and CD, fellas.
Okay. I mean, you know what? I somewhat agree with you. And the only reason why I didn't put Jamar Chase ahead is because of Joe Shiesty. Shiesty is a question mark. I feel like many others out there, Cincinnati isn't, giving us the full results of what he's really going through. And week one's only getting closer. So we'll see. It's only because of that Chase is just only a little lower, because naturally he is top, he's top two or three, easy.
Yeah,
But
easy.
yeah, okay, I get you. All right.
I have to agree with your pick, Dre, even though that's my reason for him dropping on the countdown here. Because, there's a lot of uncertainty with Joe Burrow's knee and a hamstring and calf and ankle. And, there's just a lot of
Whatever
Your
it
lower
is.
body, the
They don't
extremities.
have they don't have a backup quarterback to my understanding that's any good. So because of that uncertainty, I had him drop on the list. But he was top 3 in every category last season in fantasy football. He was number 1 in touchdowns. I think number 2 in points, number 3 in yards, number 3 in receptions. So
Keep going. It's
great
just
pick,
beauty to
guys.
my
Great
ears.
pick. But I could see him taking a little bit of a knock this year now that Joe Burrow's kicking off the season kind of banged up. So, with that being said, the fifth pick goes to you, Bones.
Speaking about, being in number 1, number 2, and number 3, respectfully, a man that's 1 year removed away from the Triple Crown himself is Cooper Kupp, right? So everybody knows he had a down year last season. Injuries are a part of the game, but he's looking healthy going into camp. Matthew Stafford ain't no scrub, and I see Cooper Kupp going back into the fold as the fantasy, dominant player that he is. Nothing but catches. This man can run the routes, takes in the slot, runs, moves around the field. It's definitely the focal point of that offense. So Cooper Kupp at 5.
Yeah, I mean it's Cooper Kupp, guys. There's no gimmicks
Give
here.
him the benefit of the doubt.
He's Mr. Reliable. He catches the ball. He runs the routes. It's beautiful work of art on the field. He just has to stay healthy, right? He has to stay healthy. It's the most important thing with him. Imagine he goes down. Where's that offense? Where does Stafford turn to?
Exactly like last year.
Yeah, and furthermore, like Sean McVay, a few seasons removed from winning the Super Bowl, if they come up with another mediocre season, Cooper Kupp may walk. He may be on the hot seat, right? That's what I think. So he has to stay there. Now when I mean healthy, the last 3 years he's only played 10 games, right? He still has that production though, so that's why with his limited opportunities you rank him high. I want to see him get to 17 games though, right? Uninjured, and you never wish injuries on anybody, even your opponents or your hated teams. But he stays healthy, he'll be up there, top 5 receiver in the league.
Yeah, although he played 9 games, he still put up a great significant amount of statistics. Yeah, he was top 5 in every category except for touchdowns, and even then he's number 6, I believe. So he's a great pickup. I'd like to see him do a full season as well. It was an expected drop because he had that season where he had 1,900 yards, 16 touchdowns, right? So we all kind of expected something to happen. Either his production was going to slow down or the inevitable, injury that usually happens with high output seasons. So let's see if he can get back up there. That's a great pick, Dre. With my number 6 pick, and now we're moving to the bottom half of the countdown here for top 10 wide receivers. I'm going to go ahead and pick Stefon Diggs.
Hey, great pick, bro. Great pick.
What is there to say, man? I mean, he's still WR1 in Buffalo, 1,400 yards last season, 11 touchdowns. Despite of what we're hearing, around the league, that he's kind of disgruntled with Buffalo, he has no choice, man. He has a fresh new contract. He has to play it out, man. I think Josh Allen needs to go the distance. He has a lot to prove, especially in the playoffs. Forget the regular season. He needs to get a couple rounds into the playoffs this year. But nonetheless, Stefon Diggs, 6 in points, 6 in yards, top 3 in touchdowns, and top 10 in receptions, man. He's a solid pick at number 6 for me.
Great pick, Jerry. Over 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, 154 targets, 108 receptions. In my opinion, the best team in the NFL right now. And they just need to get over that hump and win a Super Bowl, right? Josh Allen needs to get over that hump, win the Super Bowl, but Stefon Diggs is going to be that. He has got to be that leader in the locker room. He's 29 years old, right? One on the older side of receivers, so it's now or never for him. But his production is still there, still solid. So I believe I hope that they pull something off this year, because I know the Redskins aren't.
Hope is a dangerous thing, my friend.
I'm not your friend. I'm your brother.
Oh, even worse.
There's that smile I was missing. Welcome.
There is turmoil out there, man. He's no locker room leader. Did you not see that outburst he had
Yeah,
live in the
it was rough.
playoffs towards the franchise? Yeah, you know what?
That's
He's
what I'm
gonna put
saying.
up
He
his
needs
numbers.
he needs to be that guy. He needs to set aside his selfish ways and be that guy.
Thankfully, real NFL playoffs don't affect fantasy. So aside from that, he'll give you your fantasy points.
Agreed. Agreed.
With the number 7 pick, Dre, you're up next.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of giving you points and giving you something else, I have Mr. Amon who?
St.
St.
Brown.
Brown. The Sun God. What an illustrious player that just came out of nowhere and blessed one of my fantasy rosters last year. I was like, Amon Ra, I like that name. Let me pick him. And once I did, I never looked back. It was like driving off in the sunset into Valhalla, just beauty. I didn't win. I got second, but still, it was beautiful. Right? And he's a kid. He's young. He's hungry. I think Jared Goff. I personally believe Jared Goff is a very well above average quarterback. He's pretty confident now that he's not under the spotlight as much anymore in LA. He's in the Motor City. He's churning out touchdowns. He likes his guy Amon Ra. I think they got something good brewing there, fellas. I was mentioning this. I think they got the NFC North. It's theirs to lose, in my opinion. But Amon Ra is going to get you touchdowns. He's going to get you these points. He's a very good pick. If he drops past his ADP, I mean, he only had 1,100 yards last year, 6 TDs. I think both those numbers are going up. Both of them going up. So let's. What do you guys think of Amon Ra St. Brown?
I think that's a very promising young fella right there. 2 seasons in the league, 12 touchdowns, 2,000 yards. He's doing very decent. I'd like to see him with a top-tier premier quarterback. Jared Goff in Detroit. I don't know what to tell you, man. But Amon Ra Sam Brown, he's very promising, guys. He couldn't crack the top 10 in most categories, but he was top 5 in receptions, which is a great indicator for PPR leagues. So I like that pick, man. I'm a big fan. I also had him in multiple leagues.
Yeah,
and he paid dividends, of course.
106 receptions. I mean, those 106 points. I think it's going to go higher. So, love it.
That man is a baller. And clearly he's the focal point of that offense. And moving forward, it will be a passing offense, because they traded away DeAndre Swift. They also lost Jamal Williams in free agency to New Orleans. So everybody was shocked at Detroit last year, due to their high-powered offense that was sustained throughout the season. It was just they couldn't stop anybody. But like Andre mentioned before, that's a team on the rise. Aaron Rodgers just left. Chicago Bears still a question mark. Minnesota's always just 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So let's see how that goes. He's definitely worthy. He's definitely worthy in the top 10 of wide receivers for fantasy this year, because he is the focal point of that offense.
He's Himothy.
Yep. And speaking about focal points, right? With the 8th pick, the focal point of this offense out west, where they bury bodies in the dirt and they're never seen again. Las Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas, baby.
Davante Adams. The number 1, and the number 2 option in Las Vegas is give the ball to Davante Adams. And that's exactly how it's going to go down for all 17 games this season. And I predict the same amount of numbers, if not even better.
That's right. I love that pick. I love the pick. I'm big on Vegas every year, guys. I still got hopes for them. Listen, Davante Adams is a monster. 3 straight seasons, over 1,300 yards, 7 in points, 7 in yards, number 2 in touchdowns, and number 8 in receptions. He is just a factory out here, guys. You would be a fool not to pick him in your draft. I love that pick, Bones. He got Jimmy Garoppolo now, so let's see what type of magic they're going to produce out in Vegas, guys. We all know Jimmy G likes to gamble.
Give the ball to
Yeah,
Devontae
no,
Adams.
Jimmy. Yeah, no, you got to keep Jimmy G out the casino and out the casino hose. So once he's out of those, he's gonna be high with
He's
the pros.
throwing
That's all I'm
those.
saying. You do that, Devontae Adams is gonna produce, and he's always been a stud. It's always been a luxury and a pleasure and a privilege to have him on my squad. Any years he's been there, I treat him like royalty. So he'll get you your points, he'll get you your receptions. Now look at this. He had 180 targets, I believe, last year, right, from Derek Carr, and only
Mhm.
100 receptions. That's almost 50%. It's terrible. Jimmy G is a little bit more accurate, maybe not big on the deep ball, right? That we've seen Devontae catch from Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers time to time, but you know, if his receptions go up, those are fantasy points for you fellas. Come on, don't think twice about it. Devontae on your squad.
That's right.
Yeah, and with my number 9 pick, I'm gonna have to be, going with my home team right now. Philly in the house, South Philly, baby. AJ Brown, guys, with the number 9 pick. What is there to say, man? 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns last year. I'd like to see him get a lot more receptions. Okay, I just so happen to think, guys, this is McNabb and To the way that it was supposed to go. All they're missing is that Super Bowl win. But of course, I'm speaking as a fanatic right now, right? Top 10 in points, top 10 in yards, top 5 in touchdowns. So again, receptions could have been a little bit better. He has 77 receptions, and we know they got weapons out in Philly. So we might see a little bit of the same, but at least this guy can get you yards and touchdowns. So AJ Brown, guys, number 9 pick for me.
I like that. I like that. It's not, only reason why he's not higher is because it's not a prolific, passing offense. And that's the only reason why. And that's not a knock to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just they run a multifaceted offense, with Jalen Hurts, who has the option of taking the ball and the option, like whenever he wants. So AJ Brown's still a monster, still a stud. And not only that, he gets deep bombs. I think it was him and DK that led the league in deep touchdown passes last season.
Mm-hmm. Could be, yeah. Yeah, got to look that up. I mean, that's like you hit the nail on the head. But sometimes you hit yourself in the head, but this time you hit the nail on the head. And he does. It is a running offense. Sometimes you got the best running back as quarterback at Jalen Hurts, but he's got a cannon and he's accurate. And if he takes off, he gets those yards. But the low reception rate at 88 receptions last year kind of puts him in this lower tier, right? Especially in PPR leagues, half PPR leagues, you got to watch out for that. But those yards, almost 1,500 yards last year. So if he gets those reception numbers up, he can win you your fantasy league. The touchdowns got to be there, but 1,500 receptions and let's say another 30, 40, yards and then more receptions, he'll do well. Good pick, Jerry. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and it's not even that much of a limb because Garrett Wilson has one of the best quarterbacks going to him now, right? So at number 10, I'm going with that young man, Garrett Wilson. He showed off in his or popped off in his first year, right? With Zach Wilson. It was like Tom Hanks yelling, Wilson, right? Because Garrett Wilson had nobody to throw to him, nobody solid, nobody to command that locker room at the quarterback position. And then now that he has Aaron Rodgers there for a full offseason, it's going to be like watching kids playing backyard football, in my opinion. Young team, young head coach. He had 1,100 yards last year, but that low TD rate, I feel like that's going to go up. Imagine him taking over that Devontae Adams role, short passing routes in the red zone instead of running the ball, that little cut. So if Garrett Wilson gets his route running on key like Devontae's poetry is, He's gonna have a hell of a year. I think he's gonna get over 100 receptions, get your PPR points up. Super young. Let's rock, baby. That's my 10th pick.
I think the comparison is way too high. You know, Devontae Adams is a work of NFL gods, and this is just a second-year player.
He's good.
I want to compare him better more to Christian Watson from the Green Bay Packers. The rookie wide receiver that exploded on the scene. You know, due to him being the only option that Aaron Rodgers liked, right? So transition that to New York. Now this man can take that role and grow. Aaron Rodgers said that he plans on being in New York for a couple years. So Wilson definitely has the benefit of the doubt to possibly be a steal because he's not a household name. He could very well end up being, a top tier fantasy wide receiver, player for the season with A-Rod throwing the ball back there. Not bad.
Garrett Wilson is due for a breakout season. He definitely ended up within the top 15 pretty much in every category except for touchdowns, I believe. And that's that he has Zach Wilson behind him. So this year, like Andre mentioned, is going to be like kids in the backyard playing football. It's just going to be this old man. Let's be real, guys. Aaron Rodgers is trying to recreate or trying to get some of that magic that Tom Brady had in Tampa. You know, you're not Tom Brady, Duke, but, he has a young cat. And, he's going to flourish out there. I firmly believe he's their WR1. And we should see definitely 10, maybe 12 touchdowns out of him this year. And I think he's going to have closer to 13 or 1,500 yards with Aaron Rodgers behind him. Because let's be real, guys. He doesn't have anybody else in that squad as far as, good receivers go.
Yeah. So, yeah. Solid. I like it. A little gamble, but I like it.
Yeah, a little gamble here. I'm not necessarily comparing him to Devontae, but if he can get to that kind of route running in the red zone, that's going to increase your fantasy points, strictly from a fantasy perspective.
May not be a household name now, but he could be at the end of the season. Only a couple more months to find out. I'm excited, bro. I'm excited. Football season right around the corner.
Yeah, I already sent a mass text to the side pieces. Don't hit me up from beginning of the season until end of April.
Make sure to keep your water bottle closed this time, Andre. All right, so bonus round. All right, so let's talk about bonus round. All right, players worthy of also being drafted is we pushing an agenda out here, guys. If you haven't noticed, is Jalen Waddle, who would be a wide receiver number one in more than half of these teams in the league. Okay. Not only that, but it's also this man put out numbers all throughout last season, ending in either top 15 or top 10 in almost wide receiver outputs and categories. Can't go wrong with this man over here.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like Jalen Waddle. Had him on my squad. Solid player. 2 fastest wide receivers in the league. A little bit younger than Tyreek. Let's go. Let's rock.
He had multiple 20-point games last season.
Yeah, it's the low games that get you though, the sub 10-point games. But if you can deal with those and keep them in your lineup, you'll be good.
I love Jalen Waddle. I must say that even with Tyreek being in the lineup and being WR1 in the team, this guy just seems to be getting a ton of production. What was it? About 8 touchdowns, 1,300 yards. He managed to crack, the top 20 in every category, top 10 in yards. So, he's a solid pickup. I think in the bonus round here, Bones, major props on that. I love that pick.
What do you guys think?
With my next pick in the bonus round, I'm going to go with the comeback kid, Calvin Ridley out in Jacksonville. He's coming for Christian Kirk's job, guys. Mark my words. He's coming for that starting job because we all know Christian Kirk could barely stay in the wide receiver lineup as it was, okay? So he's going to come back and he's going to get Trevor Lawrence the respect that he deserves, all right, under Doug Peterson. So, guys, Calvin Ridley, man, he's coming back.
Are you talking about Calvin Ridley or Calvin Cambridge? Because we've all seen Like Mike, okay? He may be just like him, a one-hit wonder. I like Calvin Ridley, don't get me wrong, but He's 2 seasons removed from that monstrous season that he had, and he's coming back to football. If he keeps his gambling life aside from his NFL life, he'll be good. Jaguars offense is getting better. I said in the last podcast, there's a high octane offense. Christian Kirk is still there though. Travis Etienne out there catching passes too. So we'll see. But okay,
you got to give the guy a break too. He was stuck in Atlanta. Who do they have?
Nobody.
Magic City, I believe, is out there. Yeah. Oh, we're still talking about football. Sorry. Yeah, Bones. I like Chris Olave from New Orleans. You know them Cajun boys. They go wild, and he went wild in his first season, and low key had a top 20 production year. I think it's gonna get better. You got Derek Carr out there, seasoned vet. It's a new offense, but let's go with Chris Olave. He may crack the top 10 by the end of the season. Don't at me.
Okay. I mean, yeah, he's the number one option out there for them. It's not bad. All right. For my pick, I believe this man is in contention, right, along with Miami, as being called the best pair of wide receiver duos in the NFL right now, right? With Miami being Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, already mentioned on this list. And I'm going to mention T. Higgins to round out and complement the Bengals wideouts, their stars. T. Higgins is like Jalen Waddle, could be a wide receiver number 1 in more than half of these teams out in this league, right? He just happens to be, he just happens to be with another apex predator out there in Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
It's like a similar situation in Miami. Higgins puts up numbers. He puts up stats. Definitely knows how to use his 6'5" frame. A red zone threat. Can run routes and the outside. It's just a matter of Joe Shiesty being out on the field and making it happen. Because it's going to happen. It's a passing offense through and through. So once Joe Shiesty out there, T. Higgins is definitely somebody you would like to have on your roster. And it doesn't matter that Jamar Chase is out there, sharing the field like with him. He can still put up stats. And I expect him to do it more often this year now.
I like it. T. Higgins, great pick, Bones. Great pick.
Yeah, guys, I agree with your pick there, Bones. He knows how to pick up the slack as he did last year. So he's a great pickup. With the final pick, and before we get out of this show, I'm going to go with my guy, Keenan Allen. I firmly believe he's going to be 100% healthy. And he's going to be able to help the Chargers out in Los Angeles. So they have a solid quarterback, the quarterback of the future. They have a solid running game. I don't see why a healthy Keenan Allen wouldn't be up there. So he's going to be my final pick in this bonus round. Before we get out of here, guys, make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe button, drop a comment, hit us up on Instagram at Raw Fantasy Sports. Any final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here?
Raw is law. That's all I gotta say to that, fellas.
Agenda. It's the only agenda I care about.
We'll see. Jonathan Taylor goes to the Dolphins, guys. That's on the fantasy in itself.
Jonathan, that's a fantasy within a fantasy. You've been watching Inception, haven't you?
Agenda.
Okay. I think he's I think he's frozen. He keeps saying agenda. Fellas, pleasure, an honor, and a privilege.
Thank you, guys.